So I made a list of all the spoilery stuff that I wanted to talk about in the spoiler review. And usually when I do this with other movies, it might be, about 4, maybe 5 things I talk about. I realized in this 3-hour movie, like 96% of it is spoilery. What's happening, film friends? Dave the Film Junkie here. Yes, here's my spoiler review for Avengers Endgame. I was hoping to see it again. Sadly, since you try to get a ticket somewhere, especially if you have multiple people, it just ain't gonna happen. And I'm recording this on Saturday night. I won't be posting it until Sunday, but I was hoping to see it Sunday with my dad and my brother and my nephew, but it just didn't happen. We didn't buy tickets in time. So that sucks, but here we go, guys. Like I said, there is a lot to go over with this movie, so I gotta stop fucking rambling. Movie starts off with Clint's family disappearing, of course. We all assumed it when we saw it in the trailer. Everybody was going, oh man, they're all just gonna vanish. And it's right as we're having this touching moment where he's teaching his daughter Kate, which, she might be used later, to shoot a bow and arrow. And turns out she's pretty damn good. And yeah, it was kind of like the whole theater went, oh my God. Tony and Nebula, yeah, they're in the ship. And then we got Tony narration, as we've had throughout the MCU. And he's basically just talking. He's saying that the air's going to run out the next day. And what was kind of cool is, right here, you see Tony looking like Tony, but this was, they totally misdirected. Because in the movie, he's pretty skinny. They made him skinnier, where he was just like, it's been, 21 days, I think they said, 24 days or something, with barely any food. And I was kind of hoping that, when we saw them tinkering, that maybe that was like their way of rescuing themselves. It was going to be like an Iron Man, but it was going to be, like 2.0 of escaping the cave. But sadly it wasn't, because, it was just, they were doing this just to try to keep the ship going, and then the ship was just going to die out and oxygen was going to die out. But don't worry, because here comes Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, of course, brings him back, and then we find out that Pepper had survived. In this little part right here, in the trailer, you don't see her. They don't show her, but yeah. They come back, and then, of course, this was kind of cool seeing, like, Tony, they still had him all, skinny, and he was all out of it, hooked up to an IV, and just totally, him and Steve going back and forth. Steve was just taking it. Because Steve, was always like the pep talk guy, and he was always positive, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this, if we're going to fail together. And Tony was like, I warned you about this, I had a fucking dream! It was almost like vindication, I think, for Tony. I think that's what he felt like. And then he passed out. You kind of wonder, is he going to pass away? But no, didn't happen. And after all that, they decided to go, hey, it's time to go get Thanos. Thanos uses the stones again, so they actually could read it, and they know exactly where he was. And once they get to him, of course Tony didn't go, but everybody else went on Captain Marvel's ship. And there's Thanos fucked up, because when he used it again, it almost fucked him up. His hand was, the gauntlet was all burned up, half his face was burned up, and he was just kind of fucked up, almost like he regretted using them. And as he was explaining all this, Thor could not help himself and finally went for the head and chopped his head off. And I think some people actually, I remember somebody said something like, oh yeah, they killed Thanos within like the first 20 minutes. And I was like, that can't be right. 5 years later, yes, we see them still dealing with shit. The world is still just kind of fucked up and almost borderline apocalyptic. But Tony and Pepper are living in a nice little place off a lake, which looks kind of nice. And look at that, they have a daughter. That's right. Tony and Pepper have a daughter, and it looks all nice and gravy, and everything's cool. And you kind of just go, maybe you should, stay like that. And then Captain Marvel, like I said, she was better in this, way better than this, and than she was in her actual movie. And I was really hoping for that, and I had a feeling that was going to be the case. And what was kind of cool was after that first scene when she helped get to Thanos, she was all right there, and then all of a sudden you see her again, like in the, the hologram stuff. All of a sudden she's got like the haircut that you've seen that's been made famous, I guess, in the books, the shorter hair. And her costume looks so much better. Looks really good. And I was digging it. I was going, that's cool. They did it. Thank you, Russos. Professor Hulk. Like I said, this time, I didn't have a problem with Banner. I didn't have a problem with Professor Hulk. To be honest, the only problem I had was the fact that we didn't get to see him do what he said he did, where he was, he wanted to embrace the beast, and he found like an equilibrium, and he kept doing experiments, because, Banner's whole fucking arc is just him dealing with this bad side of him, and now he just kind of merged them two together, and it would have been nice to see that. And it's cool, but it's just like, you're just gonna live your life as a green dude, but you're not gonna be angry and stuff. Then it really begs the question, how do you have sex? But then we get to Thor and New Asgard, which is off, some shoreline. They go there to retrieve him. We see Valkyrie because, somehow she survived Ragnarok. The ship got ripped up into pieces, but somehow she just, I guess, rode her Pegasus horse back to somewhere. Thor, of course, is, he feels like he failed, this, that, and this. And I feel like, cool, you could do that. But then they just turned him into a slob where he's got a beard. And they put this fat suit on, or this, not really, I guess it was a fat suit on Chris Hemsworth. So he's still got kind of definitions, but he's got a big gut and he's a little saggy and everything. But of course, he sounds obnoxious. There's beer bottles everywhere. He's eating stuff. Korg is there, and, they're playing Fortnite. And then, are you here to fix the cable? The Cinemax keeps going out. Jesus Christ. Why the cliches? They've been using, cliches like the cable is going out for fucking 30 years. So he's kind of annoying. And then they do make a funny Lebowski joke. Tony calls him Lebowski. Because he's very much dressed up as Lebowski. It's just... And then it's like, you're really going to have him do the time travel thing? And... All right. Ant-Man returning. Scott returning. To him, it was 5 hours. But of course, it was 5 years. So he had no idea what the fuck was going on. And then he kind of knows, like, hey, the quantum realm, there's something that's going on here. I like Scott. I mean, of course, I love Paul Rudd. I think he was, one of my favorites in this movie, which is great. But, when it came to the time travel thing, he had the concept. But, of course, they needed Tony to just be like, hey, how do we really fucking achieve this? And they try it out, of course. And then there's, this scene where he comes back as a kid. And then he comes back as a baby. And then he comes back as an old man. And because there's he made the body time jump. It's really interesting. It's weird. And that brings me to the time travel concept. And yes, you could easily just rip it apart. But you could do that with everything, because what they actually cleverly do, and I thought this was pretty clever, because they knew that people were just going to rip their whole time travel concept apart. So they started ripping the time travel concept for various other movies. Specifically Back to the Future. And, the rules, too. Like, oh, yeah, if you were to travel back in time and kill yourself, you would just cease to exist automatically. And a lot of people are going, nobody pointed that out, right? When Nebula, when her older, her 2014 self gets killed, she was still alive. What the fuck? But they actually explain it in the movie that even though you go back in time and kill you kill somebody or kill Hitler or kill Thanos, you still go back to your timeline where it all still happened and that person's still alive. Interesting concept, cool. We could rip it apart. You can rip it to shreds. I get it. But who cares? So they do this and they separate into 3 teams. And of course, Tony and Cap and Ant-Man and Hulk, they go back to the first Avengers movie, which was really cool to see. They showed the shot again, the group shot. And just like a different angle, I really dug that because they were going to go get the Tesseract. Because basically, of course, the plot is to go get the Infinity Stones before they were used. And, one of the best things was Cap versus Cap because he thought it was Loki, so they fought each other. And, of course, there's like a butt joke that, it was funny. But the elevator scene where you had, what's his name? Winlow? Whatever the fucking Crossbones guy. And you had everybody pretty much that was in, Winter Soldier, that elevator scene in there too, and it was just kind of like a nice throwback. And then it was cool because he was like, I'm gonna take the whatchamacallit, the spear, whatever the fuck you call it, and he just leans in and goes, "Don't worry about it. Hail Hydra." And God, that got a cheer big time in my movie theater. But what was interesting when they got the Tesseract, and of course they brought even back Robert Redford, which was pretty cool. When they got the Tesseract back and that all went to cheese, what happened with Loki? There you go. That's how you get your own show on a streaming service. So Loki's alive somewhere. That's cool. That's cool. But yeah, of course, everything went to shit. So then they decide that they're going to go back to like the 1970s. And this was cool because, they go on the base. Tony gets to talk to his dad, and there's a touching moment there. Steve sees Peggy, and he's like, that's my love of my life right there. And then they also had to get some more of the Hank Pym molecules, and we see a young Michael P. Douglas. And we see the classic Ant-Man helmet, too. That was cool. It was just sitting right there. I don't know if he'd want that out in his lab for people to see. But it's a nice little Easter egg, and that's why they put it in there. Fan service. There's nothing wrong with that. Rocket and Thor go to Asgard for Thor 2, basically, to get that stone, which is all inside Jane. And we see Jane. There we go. Natalie Portman was there. Interesting. And then, of course, Fat Thor sees his mom, and it could be a touching moment, but at the same time, it's just full of stupid gags because he's fucking fat and stupid. Banner, Professor Hulk, goes to the Ancient One during the first Avengers movie to get the Time Stone, and she's like doing her thing, trying to keep everybody at bay, and she knows that there's a Stephen Strange, but Stephen Strange it's not Doctor Strange yet. Convinces her about the Time Stone because he said that Doctor Strange saw all the different kind of outcomes, and hopefully they find the one where they're victorious, and that's where the Ancient One goes, oh. And then, of course, Natasha and Clint, they go to a planet Vormar. I don't know. I'm probably saying that wrong, but... And then it was kind of weird because it's like, okay, don't they have to sacrifice? And, of course, they see the Red Skull again. You know, like, we're thinking, oh, okay, who's going to sacrifice himself? And they both fought to die. It was interesting. You're like, who's going to fucking fall off this cliff? Because they were just going back and forth doing that. But, of course, Natasha sacrifices. Because, Hawkeye, who's now Ronin, he just went on a killing spree and didn't even really give a shit anymore. So he felt like he deserved to die. So it's very interesting. It was pretty cool how they broke down those two characters. So they get it all, and Hulk is going to put on the Iron Gauntlet to do the finger snap. And, of course, there's a lot to it. He ends up achieving that. But then shit's going wrong because there's a connection between Nebula's older, future self and the past self because... she's a robot. Again, you could just nitpick the shit out of things and just totally rip it apart. So Thanos sees that with her little fucking, R2-D2 hologram thing. And Gamora's there. We see her from before she turned into a good guy. And then they decide, okay, you're going to send the past one back to the future. And she's going to fuck everything up. And then basically bring Thanos into 2022, I guess what we're talking about. And so that way, hey, you can just go in there, get all the stones in one shot, do the snap, and fuck everybody up. And this is where it just gets outrageously crazy. It's fucking awesome. There's so much to look at because, first off, we have the three of them trying to face Thanos, and it's just crazy. It just gets really crazy. Thor finally has a good scene where, the lightning comes, and he's got both his hammer and the, the storm killer or whatever, and his hair gets better. He still has a beard, but he has it all braided up, and he's back. He looks normal, and I thought it was pretty cool. And then of course they're fighting, and then as he's fighting Thanos, you see the hammer rise up, and you're going, who's doing the hammer thing? Captain America! Oh man, I cheered. I went, yeah! I was like, fuck yeah, because obviously, in Age of Ultron, we saw him when he was trying to lift the hammer. He moved it a little bit. And then, of course, Thor says, he didn't say I fucking knew it. I wish he said I fucking knew it. So you got Captain America with his shield and the hammer. Just fucking, it was just crazy. It was just so good. Seeing those three battle them out like that, it was nuts. And then everybody just shows up. First Black Panther shows up. We see all the little portals from Doctor Strange. Everybody just showing up. Wakanda people, everybody who died just shows up. The theater just lit up. Everybody's cheering, and there's so much crap going on. It's just pure madness. And then, of course, this was predicted. And like I said, a lot of things that Captain Marvel, we predicted that she's going to rescue Tony, right? Oh, she's going to end up showing up in the middle of the final act to save the day, right? Sure enough, she did, because then all of a sudden the guns are shooting upward. And what are they shooting at? And then all of a sudden she starts going in. It was cool. It wasn't like a, oh my God kind of moment. It wasn't like when Wonder Woman had her entrance. Did I do that? I did it. Oh God, the fanboys are going to be arguing down below. Good luck, guys. No, but, it was cool. We knew that was going to happen. Everybody cheered in the theater. And then, of course, they had they had to do the ultimate wink to the crowd for the audience in 2019 to show all the female Avengers essentially going forward and fucking some shit up. It's cool seeing Pepper in her own Iron Man costume, which was blue. That was cool, but yeah, you got Wasp, you got Valkyrie doing her thing, we got Scarlet Witch, of course Captain Marvel, what's her name from Wakanda, I can't remember, goddamn, I'm just, what? And it's a cool moment, but yeah, it was the ultimate, hey guys, hey, see what we did here? Alright, nobody's gonna get mad, are they? When all's said and done, it was even cool, Scott turned into Giant Man again, he got everybody out from underneath, because, of course, they fucked up the Avengers headquarters and they're almost looking like they're going to die. Thanos gets the gauntlet again, but Iron Man, of course, grabbed it first, and then when he tried to snap, he realizes all the stones were gone, and Iron Man has his own little gauntlet on his costume, and then he does the snap. It was a cool little spot because I forgot what Thanos said. He said, "I am something," and then, of course, when that happened, Tony goes, "Well, I am Iron Man." Bam! I don't know why he didn't have his helmet on, though, when he did that. But I get it, though, because you had to see his face, And then as soon as that happened, it was like, cool, victorious. But I was going, Tony is not going to survive that. If Hulk got fucked up from that, there's no way Tony's going to be able to handle that. And sure enough, this is where, there were people, and I teared up too, because it's like, oh shit. And then especially you got Peter. Just like in Infinity War with the Peter and Tony scene, where it's just like, Mr. Stark, and then he goes away, but this time now Tony's gonna die, and it was just like, oh man, they're killing me with Peter here, and then Pepper saying that we're gonna be okay, we'll be okay, because she's of course talking about her daughter and her, and she just knew that Tony wasn't going to be fulfilled in life unless he could fix what happened. And I think she was already prepared for him to die. Of course, she was bawling her eyes out, but she was just prepared to lose Tony. And it was pretty intense. Like, Jesus Christ. Wow. They did it. I thought Captain was going to die. Funeral scene was cool because it showed everybody, even though I could totally tell that they weren't all on set. Especially with Doctor Strange. You could totally tell, it's like they just put him on a green screen. It's just like, yeah, they're all not there. You see Nick Fury, too. And so you had everybody there. It could have, I felt like it could have been a little more grander because it's Iron Man. But they kept it simple, which is fine. I guess maybe they didn't want to show the empty box back east. I'm just saying, this could have been a little bit more, I don't know. But it was cool. It's whatever. And then, of course, they're going to travel. They're going to try to put the time stones back or else shit's going to go wacky. Not sure exactly all that. You could really nitpick that part, too. That you have to put all the time stones or all the infinity stones back in order for everything to be okay. So that's what Steve's going to do. He does that, doesn't come back, and it was like, oh, of course he's not going to come back. He's going to fucking find Peggy. And then we see old Steve. He's sitting on a bench. And they did pretty good makeup. They really did. And, Bucky and Sam, they go up to him, and Sam starts talking to him. And it's a pretty touching moment. I thought, well, that's pretty cool what they did with Steve. I mean, again, you could rip it apart with all the time travel stuff. It was touching, and then, of course, he has his shield, and he ends up handing it to Sam. This made me upset. Really? Really? You're going to have Falcon Captain America? I know that he's been Captain America in the books. I get that. But you already foreshadowed Bucky holding the shield. It was foreshadowed throughout. And he just threw it out. Oh, let me guess. If you give it to the black guy, you get brownie points, don't ya? Okay, fine. It's cool. That's great that you did that. And I really wanted Sam to go, Bucky, this is for you. That would have been cooler. You probably would have had all your bases covered. And you know what? Bucky is superhuman. It's only logical. Just saying. I just was so upset by that. I'm like, really? You gotta give it to Sam? Come on. It's just, so frustrating, And it's just like, fuck, man. But I think they, of course, did it just to get the fucking brownie points. But, I mean, they foreshadowed it. They teased it. They built it up. That's just really frustrating. I mean, it would have been cool if Sam was like, just walked up to Bucky and handed the shield to him. And then Bucky and old Steve had their moment, which... Hello? But it's cool because I even saw people go, wouldn't it be awesome if Steve goes back in time and he gets that dance that he promised with Peggy? And they show that. And it was very touching. And I thought, cool. That was actually better than Steve dying. I think it worked out. Like, having Tony die and Steve doing this whole time travel thing where he got to have his happy ending, I thought that was a lot better. So, kudos, Russos. So there we go, guys. I know this is a long video, but there was so much to talk about. So much. Like I said, there's problems with it. Like, you can nitpick the shit out of the time travel stuff, but you could do that with any time travel movie, and, they even do it in here, which is funny. So, it's whatever, guys. You just take it as it is and stuff. You can't, I mean, if you're going to do that, it's just going to ruin the experience for you, but whatever. That's fine. It was cool. So, there you go, guys. That is my spoiler review of Avengers Endgame. Hit that like, thumbs up button if you'd be so kind. Subscribe to my channel, visit thefilmjunkie.com for all my content. Follow me on all that social media stuff right down there. Patreon, too, if you want to. And shirts and stickers. It should be hovering at the bottom there. So check it out. All right, guys? Talk to you later.